Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining me once again. Uh, Mixtape Mondays with Sunshine. And today I have a very, very, very special guest with me, Raul Amador, owner and executive editor of Bass Musician magazine.
Hey, Sunshine, great to be here. Thanks for having me on today.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so super excited. We've been looking forward to this day. You've been such an inspiration to so many bass players since 2007. You guys have been rocking and rolling with the magazine. You and your wife established it in 2007, am I correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And you guys have just been such a contribution to the world of music in general, and me and everybody out there, all the fans, we just want to say thank you to you and Valerie from the bottom of our hearts for being such an integral part in music and the history of bass guitar in particular.
We love what we do. It's our pleasure.
So excuse me. I know that you were born in Colorado and you briefly lived in El Paso, Texas, which is super cool because I am a Texas girl. El Paso's a rough one, though. I bet that was fun hanging out there for a couple of years. And then you moved to Puerto Rico with your father.
Yep,
And
the whole family.
The whole family. And that's where you began your musical career?
Actually, it goes a little farther back. Let me take us kind of a chronological detail here. I got into music at a very young age, and a big part of that had to do with the fact that my aunt used to travel to Brazil a lot, and she would bring records home. And so as early as I can remember, I was hearing, Brazilian music, Latin rhythms, stuff like that. And I'd pound away on bongos to start out with, just kind of getting a percussive groove going at an early age. And then at the age of 5, my mom thought it'd be a great idea for me to start learning accordion.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. I've always wanted to learn accordion. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's all good. The good and the bad is, I took classes, and actually it was, early 60s, and kind of got involved with the polka circuit and Frankie Yakovich and the Yanks. And it was
how fun.
It was kind of a thing. But part of the good and the bad was that I've always had a really good ear, and I would learn things by ear. I was faking that I was reading music. My teacher thought I was learning to read music, and I was basically just memorizing the pieces and playing them back to her.
Very talented.
So the bad thing is I didn't really learn to read music all that well when I really could have. It would have been much easier. But since I was cheating, it's when the pieces started getting harder that I'm kind of going, oh, now what am I going to do? This is rough. And then all of a sudden, this group from England shows up on the horizon, and the Beatles make it so that who can play accordion? Who can play Beatles music on an accordion? I know Weird Al does that kind of stuff, but I'm like, oh no, this isn't going to work. I can't play Beatles music on an accordion. So I asked my mom if I might get a guitar or something. And, I'm a kid, and I'm sure like most parents, she's probably like, you're probably not that serious. But she had a friend and borrowed a Fender and an amp. And I started noodling on the guitar, and I seemed serious enough that she said, well, I've got to give this other person back their gear, but since you seem serious, I'll buy you a guitar and an amp. So she did what many moms did back in the 60s, went to the pawn shop and picked up a used Harmony guitar, and a used, it was whatever brand Sears was making, an amplifier. and I started playing electric. I started taking some classes in Colorado, and was just learning chords and some whatnot. And the guy that was teaching me was kind of funny because his day job, he was a milkman.
Oh, the milkman.
The milkman was teaching me guitar, and he had short, stubby little fingers. They all like 5 thumbs. And I kept going, how can this guy play guitar? He doesn't have very long fingers and all that. But he was teaching me chords and rhythm guitar and that kind of stuff. And that was all good and well. And then we moved to El Paso. So now I show up in El Paso. I'm 5th grade, and I've got a little guitar playing under my belt. And as happens, there was other kids in the class that wanted to make a band. And so we put together our first rock and roll band. It was 2 guitars, a drummer, and a tambourine player, because again, this is the 60s.
So what does tambourine player?
Well, the tambourine player was sometimes tambourine, sometimes maracas, minor percussion, but he didn't even really sing or anything. So it was just kind of like a friend. So the band members, it was Butch, Charlie, and Barry, and myself. We put together a band, and we called ourselves the Incredibles.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and we went through a lot of names because the 60s was very psychedelic. And so, but we're 5th graders. So we're not, really experimenting or doing anything. So we're like, yeah, let's be the Peppermint Fog, or let's do this. And we ended up with the Incredibles. So because of where we were, we played the talent show at our school. I decided to modify my guitar by painting fluorescent paint on it.
I like this.
Well, good and bad. I mean, in the list of toys that are no longer available to children because fluorescent stuff is radioactive.
Oh my God.
Maybe not such a good toy. And it had some caustic characteristics where it basically ate the finish off of the guitar wherever I painted it. My idea was that when we started on the dark stage, my guitar would glow in the dark. Okay. And then the lights would come on, and yay, there we go. But the long and the short of it is we were practicing, we were playing, and we entered a battle of the bands. And there were 3 bands, and we're talking, East El Paso kind of stuff, or 60s rock. And I got really sick right before that battle of the bands. I was running a fever, and I was feeling terrible, but the show has to go on. So I went anyway. And I was so tripping with my fever.
I was about to say, okay, were you sick or were you on some mushrooms, Raul?
I was just a regular, 5th grade fever kind of stuff. I'm like 104. I'm just like, ah. And as fate would have it, we won that battle of the bands.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the prize was to go on local TV.
Okay.
And so we went on a show that was playing on Saturdays. It was Steve Krosno. He was a big DJ and stuff in El Paso, and he had Krosno's Hop. And we went on. And by the time we got our spot on his TV show, I got better, and we basically went and we sucked. And and he kind of dissed us. He's like, you guys should probably go back and practice more. And so we were so ashamed and so angry that for the whole week after, basically we would meet after school and beat each other up.
Oh my God, Raul. Yeah. That's how it is in El Paso, man. Yeah. Come on, let's get real.
Because nobody could own that whose fault it was or whatever. And, it was like, okay, so end of the week, I've got like the white on one of my eyes all bloody red. We've all pounded on each other. We're not doing the band thing anymore. It's done. And I started playing kind of on my own. And then just as fate would have it, my dad bought a Mexican dreadnought for my grandfather. And he was going to give it to him for Christmas. But my grandpa was kind of a rolling stone, and it turns out that Christmas he didn't show up. So my dad said, "Hey, you want a guitar?" So I got my first acoustic.
Okay, super
and
cool.
I started taking classes with Manolo Para in Juarez.
Wow.
And so started getting a little classical guitar, getting some fingerstyle, getting some other stuff going, and did that for about 6 months. And then we moved to Puerto Rico.
Of course.
So now,
to prepare you, right? It was like in preparation.
Yeah. So now I'm a guitar player. And of course, my mom picked up the accordion because it's not like you can, what are you going to do with an accordion, with a used accordion? So she played the accordion. I said, fine.
Mom, yeah.
You keep the accordion. I'll play guitar. We're all good. So I get to Puerto Rico and I'm thinking, of course, you know, I'm 13 now. And I'm thinking, you know, the girls are all going to like a guitar player. So I'd go and sit in front of my house out on the curb and play. Just hoping somebody would walk by and hear me and, you know, go, "Oh, wow, you're cute. Let's go out." And as fate would have it, I'm sitting out there playing and a couple of people walked by and they stopped. They started listening a little bit and they said, "You know, you're not bad. We have a musical group that we play with. Maybe you should come try out. It's on Friday night. We got a location up at the shopping center here. Come on down, see, you know, maybe you want to join." And so I went up and I joined. I made the cut and I joined a typical Puerto Rican group named La Tuna de Calle.
La Tuna
de Calle.
De Calle. And what is that? What does that mean?
How does that translate?
Yes.
Calle is the town I was living in. So the de would make it of Calle, the tuna of Calle.
Okay.
And tunas traditionally were a Spanish tradition where medical students would get the musicians together and they would go serenade lovely señoritas.
Oh, ooh la la.
So they would go outside of the balcony on the street and serenade the señoritas. And the grateful señoritas for such lovely music would reward them throwing down ribbons.
Oh.
And they would affix the ribbons to capes that they wore.
Okay. And
a good tuna would have a lot of ribbons. It was kind of showed that they were well appreciated and they liked that. And so Juan Angel Nogueras, one of the teachers at the high school that I was going to in Puerto Rico, thought this would be a cool idea. Let's do a Puerto Rican version of a tuna. And so he put together a group and we're talking pretty close to 20 people.
Okay.
It had 9 vocalists, so 3 groups of 3s.
Wow.
3 male singers, 6 females. We had a string section, which I played guitar in to start out with. We had electric bass, full drum kit, Latin percussion, timbales, conga, the minor percussion, cowbell, donkey jaw, tambourine,
donkey jaw,
whatever.
What in the world? What in the world is that?
La quijada de burro, which they actually, in some places they use an actual donkey jaw and hit it, but the LP makes a version of it. It's kind of like a combination of a cowbell with a wood block, and you go, and it makes kind of sound.
Okay, I think I've seen it before. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know the terminology for it.
Yeah, well, and I do a lot of have to do. Because and I'll say this, when I left El Paso, I did not speak Spanish. All I knew was deme una Coca-Cola and and ¿dónde está la playa? I thought that's what I needed.
Where's the beach and can I get a Coca-Cola?
That's right. And I thought I would be good to go that way. And so I get to Puerto Rico and I've got to learn Spanish. And so I have now an expanded vocabulary where I kind of go back and forth in both languages after I lived in Puerto Rico for a total of 18 years.
Wow.
But back to the group, it was great because we were recorded about a dozen albums with them. They're still going, but it's new members. It's like the group is 50 years old or something like that. They had anniversaries and whatnot. And we did a lot of traditional Puerto Rican Christmas music, and it was kind of niche, you know, and we did a lot of some other Latin rhythms and some things, but
Okay.
we would play fiestas patronales. Every town in Puerto Rico has a patron saint.
Okay.
And they party for 2 weeks out of the year. And we would go to the different towns and play. We did a lot of Christmas shows. We played hotels. We toured, played New York City. We played Hunter College, a lot of Spanish Harlem.
Wow. And so
forth.
this is your 20-piece band?
This 20-piece, yeah.
Whoa. How do you even manage something so large?
Well, the beauty of it was I was just one of the musicians.
Yeah.
You know, the director had to worry how you manage all of this, and it didn't pay, but we didn't really care because we're kids, and the excitement of getting to perform and getting to play and go places exceeded ever thinking, hey, I don't get paid for this. I spent a lot of time doing this and I'm not getting paid. So, you know, we were happy to get Whoppers. We'd play a show and pull into Burger King and we're like, hey, food, this is great. Woo!
Sounds like a lot of musicians still today.
Oh yeah. It's part of the kind of the evolution.
Absolutely.
And
yeah.
So from there, I did not even play bass. We had a bass player, and it did allow me to expand. I did a lot of side groups, you know, little kind of quartets or trios and other things. And I graduated from high school, went to college, and it started getting a lot harder to play with the band and do college stuff.
Sure.
And in my senior year of college, I had finals, and I'm just like, you know, I can't do them both. So I let the group go.
Can you tell us what you went to college for?
I did undergrad in physics.
Oh, fancy man.
Well, my dad was a chemist.
Nice.
And I felt I needed to do physics so I could show him I was smarter than he was. It didn't really work that way. I thought I'd figured it out, but that did not work that way. And ultimately, with the group, probably the last highlight is that an opportunity came up for me to play a typical Puerto Rican instrument. And so kind of historically, a lot of our string instruments come from lutes. So the guitar, the bass guitar, all of these, they have their origins back in Europe, and lutes and upright basses and stuff like this. So the Puerto Ricans were trying to make lutes, but it wasn't working out, and they made something they call a cuatro.
Okay.
And a cuatro is kind of like a mandolin with a thyroid issue. It's smaller than a guitar, but it's bigger than a mandolin. It has 10 strings.
Whoa.
They're doubled up, so like a 12-string guitar. So you're playing at octaves. Okay. On the lower strings, high, low octave, and then the last four are double on the same note.
Yeah.
And the way they traditionally made it is they would take a solid block of wood and chisel away the neck, the head, the body, everything.
Wow.
And then put a sound top on top of that. And so our cuatrista left the group, and the director came up to me, said, you know, we need somebody to play. Do you think you can? I'm like, sure, you know, I'll give it a try.
Uh-huh.
And so I picked up the cuatro, and that's what I was playing for the last years while I was with the group. And it was fascinating and fabulous because it's an instrument that Puerto Ricans identify with as their national instrument. So when we would play New York, and people would see it, they're like, "Wow!" You're cheering.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. And when I left the group, I bought it from the group. I'm like, you know, I can't give up this instrument. This is mine. I need it. I have to have it. So yeah. I forked out money. They very graciously sold it to me. I still have it.
Of course.
Gone with me all over the place. But
so, are you known as a cuatristo?
I would be a cuatrista.
It's still like, cuatrista.
Yeah, gender
Okay.
non-specific with that, but
Okay.
when I went, I left the group and I went to graduate school. I followed up. I became a dentist.
Oh, you stop it.
Yeah,
Oh
seriously.
my goodness. So I can just hire you to, I have some issues going on with my teeth that I've been
Well,
very public about. So I'll just fly up to Washington and you and Valerie can graciously take care of my
well,
issues.
and where I hate to disappoint, but I'm actually retired now. So I did it. I did dentistry for 30 years and then retired. And a big part of retiring was to allow me to go full time with bass musicians. So that kind of takes the circle around. So throughout my years as a dentist, I in dental school I played the talent shows. I wrote music. And then life happens and I needed to work and I put down my instruments. And it wasn't till our son got to an age where he was wanting to play music,
Okay.
and he plays sax.
Nice.
And we started him around 5th grade, and I turned into the dad that looks at saxophones and reeds and cases and all the stuff that saxes need. And as he turned into a teenager and seemed a little less grateful, I started thinking, maybe I should look into stuff I wanted to play bass. I've always wanted to play bass. And so I started researching, and I found a bass I liked, a Samick Custom 5-string.
Okay.
And I started taking classes with Jake Cott. And Jake was actually kind of, the thing is, every time I would go in, he'd ask me about players. He'd say, have you heard of Jocko? And I'd be like, no. He says, oh no, you got to get this CD and listen to it. So now I'm going out and I'm buying a CD and I'm listening, like, oh wow, Jocko. And then I'd come in another time and he'd go, have you heard of Willis? I'm like, no. It's like, oh no, you're gonna have to go. Have you heard of Nathan East? No. So, and so I came home. We had started. My wife had been working with digital publications,
Uh-huh.
and I came home and I said, could we do one for bass? Because there's got to be a lot of people like myself that don't know about the musicians, and this could help all of us, as we learn who's who and what's going on and all that. So that was 2007. And just this issue that's up currently is our 13th anniversary.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
That must feel amazing. 13 years.
Yeah. So Jake was the editor with us for, I want to say, around the first 5 years. I was creative director.
Okay.
And then he decided to move on to pursue other issues, other things. And I stepped up as editor and been doing that ever since.
Nice. I can't even imagine the number of musicians that you've interviewed and interacted with and had the chance to actually like stand in the same room around and be, within the same presence. And how do you like not fanboy out and get nervous, and clammy, and like, how do you keep it all together?
Well, one of the characteristics I'd say with bass players is that we tend to be some pretty chill dudes. And I have rarely, I'd say over all the years, maybe I've come across one or two bass players that had kind of an attitude.
Okay.
And because they're such chill individuals, you feel at ease like right away,
Sure.
and even though like one of the very first in-person interviews I did was with Victor Wooten.
Oh, wow.
And we had gone down to the NAMM show, and we'd arranged with his PR people because he had just finished releasing the music book.
Okay.
CDs and the book, amazing. I've been listening to it. Victor is deep beyond bass. He's a deep individual. And this was all new. So they had set up so we could meet before the show at one of the hotels there in the Anaheim Convention Center. So we're all there. We got our camera, mic, all this stuff, and do this interview. And he was such a nice guy that if you have any trepidation, any worry, you don't stress, because like, oh, you're just another cool cat, So this is, I don't feel intimidated. You're not standing over me going, oh, I am such a great, and you're such a little person. It's like, no, he just talks to you straight, at level, and he makes you feel very comfortable. So we do the interview, and that night we get back to the hotel room. I was so excited because we'd been on the show floor all day long. And I'm like, I want to hear a little of my interview with Victor. So pop the camera open, hit play. I discovered that the audio had malfunctioned.
Oh God, stop it.
We only had video.
Oh God, that's the
worst. So we contacted his PR people that night and said, listen, we had a technical problem. Could we perhaps, if Victor could possibly find time, could we do this again? And he was so gracious and so nice that he did.
Oh.
And so that was this is the kind of people that do what we do. The bass players, he was understanding. He wasn't like, you put me out or anything. It was like, hey, it happens.
Yeah.
No big deal. And that was the beginning, I think. After I talked to Victor, I'm like, everybody is really nice and very understanding. And I think one of the key reasons I could do that is that I'm not competing with Victor. I can't play at Victor's level. I have watched him play on numerous occasions, both with his family, because they had come through town. They had done a show and a NAMM show and all kinds of places. I love what he does, but he is top echelon for me. He's at a whole other level that you just got to go, man, you blew my mind.
Some people are just born with it, right? I mean, some people, I feel like, hey, they say practice makes perfect. I mean, but really practice, can only get you as far as really your skill level. I feel like once you hit a certain, threshold, I mean, yes, you can continue educating yourself and you can continue practicing, but some people are just like born with this like amazing gift and amazing talent that just not everybody else possesses. And those are the kind of people that we just have to really be able to like look up to and study and educate ourselves on,
Yeah. Well, and I think with Victor growing up in a musical family, it helped him to up his game continuously, because there's kind of that sibling rivalry. I mean, his brother's an amazing guitar player. And so you start putting those two together. And
got you.
They're matching licks and they're doing stuff. I mean, it goes beyond, you just can't just groove. You've got, and he's a big proponent of the groove.
Yeah.
But when he decides to cut loose, you're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? So anyway, most everybody that I have met has been so nice and so welcoming, and so it's just been part of the family. And we've had great experiences backstage, at concerts, on location, Skype-wise, especially during these times during the pandemic. They've been kind. It's really, they're just people. They're really great people, which is why we do this with the love that we do all the time.
Yeah, and that's what I really do like to reiterate, is we all are just people. And I was watching a documentary on Bernie Worrell yesterday, and he said it great when he was like, I don't think, he's like, I have inspirations, but I don't look up to anybody because we're all at the same level. And that really, it struck a chord with me. So I was like, I think everybody needs to think like that. And some people need to stop having such a superiority complex, because we all are just human beings, so it's really, it's nice to know that there are such humbling people out there, such as Victor Wooten and many other musicians that you've interviewed over the years.
Well, and I think it helps with musicians. It is a group participation thing. You have to learn to get along with other people, to play with other people. You can't, I mean, especially when you've got hours in a tour bus, or hours waiting for an airplane, or hours doing whatever, you kind of have to learn some social skills.
Yeah.
That I think maybe other professions don't necessarily develop, not to mention the fact that you go into strange settings, you never know what you're going to find, and you adapt and kind of go, okay, today the stage is 3x3. Yes, the last stage was 20x40.
Today we're setting up on a table outside of the Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. And so it takes away, I think, a little, like I'd say, especially with bass players. Now, I might agitate some lead singers and some guitar players. I do find that they tend to have a little more attitude to them, but hey, that's not my gig. I don't have to interview them. I talk to the bass players. They're great.
I have a question for you from Dave.
Okay, Dave.
Dave wants to know, what do you find to be the hardest part of keeping a band together?
And what I would share is something that I've heard from a lot of bands that have been together for decades. And a lot of it has to do with certainly mutual respect, kind of seeing each other as family, where you forgive stuff, and you are considerate of each other, where, like, let's say in the household, if you go to get a glass of milk and there's only a little bit left, you might go, well, other people are going to want this for coffee or cereal, so I'm not going to just guzzle the last of the milk,
Raul, Valerie's taught you very well.
Don't drink all the milk. And with that, they do. There is so much time that is shared. And for the majority of them, a performance might be an hour out of a 24-hour day. I mean, you could have spent all day on the bus, you spent time loading in, you spent all this other time, and then you're actually on stage interacting for a short while. It's not to say that those relationships don't fail, because we've seen this in some of the biggest groups that you just kind of go, back to the example of the Beatles. When the Beatles broke up, we were kind of, how could that be?
Yeah. Wait, how could it be?
Yeah. They seem to get along so well. And then we saw their movies, I mean, like Help and A Hard Day's Night, and you kind of going there, how could they not be together? And, there are personal differences. And I know there are some of us that might go, well, external influences affected them, and, different choices that made them kind of drift apart.
Sure.
So I think longevity for bands has a lot to do with mutual respect and having a common goal, and when I played with the Tuna, one thing I will say, I didn't love all the music we played. I liked some of our songs, but there were others like, yeah, I can play it, and I know we play it, and we will. But it's like, yeah, it's on the list, and I look forward to the ones I like.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you could have a song list of stuff you love, and that is in itself also fulfilling. And I think that nowadays musicians have the important part of bringing message forward, and their opportunity to share that with the rest of the world is a whole other reason they can stay together as well, because they're going together. We are putting this forward. And so if you are picking, I know, like you're into reggae, a lot of the reggae that you hear, it does have kind of a unifying message of love and, and acceptance. And, I have had the privilege of listening to reggae in the Caribbean, and it's just like, they were so cool and accepting and nice. And I mean, I never felt in danger or anything. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm not the Rastaman, but the message I took forth was more of there were political statements being made, especially a lot of the early Bob Marley stuff. But there was a lot of love and brotherly, let's get together, let's accept each other, and to be able to do that as a group, I think is certainly very rewarding.
Yeah. That's actually a very great answer. And thank you so much for answering that for us. So the Face of Bass, founded in 2007. Just a few of the artists that you've been able to interview. We've already mentioned Victor Wooten. You've also had the privilege of interviewing Larry Graham, Marcus Miller, Nathan East, Les Claypool, Jeff Berlin, Esperanza Spalding. The list goes on and on and on. How are you able to, do you just reach out to these people and they're just very humble and reaching back out to you?
Well, for a moment, I must point out that we have a very strong support in the bass community, and we have many contributors that have made a lot of this possible for us. And if you look back on some of those interviews, you'll see that I didn't do them myself. There were other people that had the opportunity, they had made a contact, and they spoke to, a lot of these people, as a matter of fact. That said, it's been the group effort for us to be able to do as much and to make as many contacts, because sometimes it can be challenging getting through the walls that have gone up. And I'll say, especially with bigger name artists, a lot of times, it's their PR people that will kind of go, yeah, I don't want to just put you guys in touch, or I don't want to bother him with this or whatever. But it's in some instances, it'll happen where they have a new release and they want to talk about it, and they've got something that, it gets generated from their end of it. In others, it's been our contributors that have had the chance to chat with them or knew them, or a great example of that was David Ellefson. I had a chance to chat with Dave. We did Skype with him. But during that same month, a guy that he grew up with, Von Scow out of Nashville, they had grown up in Minnesota together. And he also did kind of an interview. And it's a whole different angle, because it was like they lived in the same town and they knew the same people, and they went their different ways. And so it had a whole different angle on it. And so we have been able to be kind of a focusing point for a lot of this effort from our contributors and the efforts they put forth and the people they talk to. Now, granted, I have had a chance to chat with, Nathan East is amazing. He's another cool cat. Chuck Rainey. The list goes on and on of just so many amazing players. So I do a lot of those, but I would be remiss if I did not recognize the effort and the support of our contributors and all of the people that do this for love of the instrument. And in many instances, they've had a very similar, they've walked away from an interview and they have just said, wow, what a nice guy.
Yeah.
This guy was so cool.
That's how I felt about you. I meant to start the interview off by saying thank you, actually, for giving me a chance to be interviewed in Bass Musician magazine, excuse me, 2 years ago. And, you just took a random, shot with me, and you were just super kind and just super humble, and and God, that just meant the world to me, because sometimes that's just what people need, is just like a little bit of recognition, or just somebody to tell them, hey, you're doing a great job, or and you did that for me. And man, that interview opened up all kinds of doors, and I just from the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys for giving me that opportunity.
Well, we're very happy that we could do that, and it's been one of our goals has been to try to be as inclusive as possible. And because of that, I talk to up and coming musicians. There was a spell I had just in this last year that I talked to a bunch of teenagers. It was like week after week that these kids, and I call them kids because I'm not a teenager anymore, but it's in no way demeaning, making less, but they're the promises for the future. They're the people that are going to Victor Wooten's camp to learn stuff from him. They're the people that are studying from Gerald Beasley. They're the people that are, maybe starting in music school, starting to go to Berkeley maybe this year.
Yeah.
They're at the beginning of their journey. And at the other end of that spectrum, I've had the chance to chat with some of these individuals that are, like Reggie Workman, who is 82, and Steve Swallow, who is,
legendary. Yeah.
And, it's fascinating to see where each of these individuals is in their musical journey. And, that but we need to hear kind of what these people are thinking at the beginning as well, and some of the conversations are short because they haven't had much life experience. There's one guy, I remember had been working the Jersey Shore, and he'd been playing for 2 years, and he's just hitting the clubs and he's doing what he's doing. And, he's at the very start of this, and things are taking off, and they're getting some recording stuff and all that. And it's great to hear the energy and the excitement and what they're thinking. And a lot of these will serve as kind of time capsules. And my hope is that for many years, because this will be available for people long after I'm gone, they might go back to this and go, oh, what's his name say? What was he thinking when he was 19? Or what was he thinking when he was 50? Or what was he thinking when he was, 82? It's just all these different stages.
Well, and these kids nowadays, they're just phenomenal. I mean, they've grown up, watching tutorials on YouTube. And, we didn't have that back in the day, which I couldn't even imagine. I mean, we're seeing these, 7, 8, 9-year-old prodigies just like killing it. I can't even imagine when they get to be our age, dude, it's going to be a whole new evolution of music with all these kids that are coming up, all these child prodigies. They're doing things that we weren't doing until we were in our some of us still aren't even doing it.
Well, and that has been, it has had to be a lesson in humility to me, because when I see this, there's one that's hitting it hard right now. This kid puts out like a video every day, and he's playing Jacko, and he's playing a lot of stuff. I don't know, maybe he's 11 or 12 or something like that. And
his name?
I post, I'm terrible with names, but
join the club.
Yes. I put a lot of his stuff up on our page. So if you go to the Bass Musician Magazine Facebook page,
okay, I'm
kind of constantly throwing stuff of his, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, this guy, this kid is killing it. And he just got he's on Sadowski basses. It looks like he got maybe an endorsement deal with GR.
Oh, wow.
Bass, the Italian amplification company.
Nice.
And he's tearing it up. And I only hope that there's somebody out there that will help guide them when it comes to like the career choices. And we had a chance to chat with Doug Wimbish at one of the NAMM shows, and he was going to play live, but he had connected with these two kids, and basically these two kids had played School of Rock, the musical. And you've probably seen one of them in other instances. They're getting older, they're teenagers now, but they played when they were little kids. And again, name escapes me, but amazing guitar player. Again, people, if you look.
But you mean the movie School of Rock, or?
On Broadway.
Oh, wow. Crazy.
So because they put these actual children that had to have the licks. So as we're talking, these kids are already doing Broadway shows, but they would age out so they couldn't be older than a certain age.
Oh, got you. Okay.
And Taz Niedermeyer, amazing guitar player. So
Henry, my friend Henry, I just interviewed him the other day. He was talking about Taz being at NAMM.
So they threw together a show. And when I say threw together, it was with no rehearsal. They did a jam session. And it was Taz, a friend of his who's a drummer, name escapes me, and Doug Wimbish. And it was, I mean, you would have thought they'd been playing together for years.
Yeah.
It meshed so well. And you're kind of going, oh my gosh. And then you go on like they did Jesus Christ Superstar on TV, and Taz is playing opening licks. And you're kind of going, wow. I mean, you know, what Doug had said is he was trying to help guide kind of career advice, because it's one thing when you've got talent,
sure,
but also in this kind of business, you can burn out, you can make poor choices.
And we see that a lot, right?
Oh, yeah.
We see that all the time. Amazing musicians that just are not given enough guidance, or are just kind of caught up in the rock star lifestyle, you know, join the club, and it's all about, you know, either learning from a young age or learning the hard way.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's just how you kind of either, you know, if you have a mentor, somebody that's looking after you, or if you're just not going to listen to anybody and just do whatever you want, and unfortunately that does burn a lot of musicians out, you know.
Yeah. And I think it's one of if people had, unfortunately, you can't know everything about everything. And that's where it's always helpful to get a team of people with knowledge. If you've got a mentor, if you've got somebody that you can ask the questions, those people can help you get through some of the, you know, making bad decisions. And I'll give an example. I mean, we've heard of famous bands that will sign with a label. The label will make an arrangement. When all is said and done and they look at the fine print, it turns out that the label owns their music and they don't.
Yeah.
And now they break off from the label. They want to play their own songs, and they can't even play their own music because the label has the rights to this music. And, you know, it brings bad blood. And just recently I'd had a chance I had a chance to interview Kathy Valentine from the Go-Go's.
Nice.
And she has a book that had come out fairly recently. And one of the big problems kind of with the group is they had gotten into business arrangements where the different band members weren't getting all paid the same. The ones that wrote the songs got paid more, but nobody really knew how it worked to start out with. And then when they started figuring it out, then they're kind of going, well, that doesn't seem fair. I was at every show that this person was at, and how come I'm only getting paid this much? And this person is really doing great, and I'm not doing so good. And a lot of it kind of came down to issues with management, issues with labels, you know, and then that puts wedges as we go back to how do people get along. Yeah. A lot of these things will divide a group where unfortunately some of these grudges will go on, you know, a lifetime.
Yeah, just like that Motley Crue, that movie that came out on Netflix. Were you able to watch that?
I have not yet, but
oh my goodness. Wait, was it Motley Crue? I think it was. It was crazy, the whole story. It was just like mind-blowing. I'm like, here's this band that, you know, just completely blew up, and, you know, all the women are screaming and then they just went crazy. And, you know, unfortunately, like one thing after another, like one member after another just started kind of like falling off the rails. And, you know, it's just important to stay focused, I think. And especially right now in these times that so many things are changing and we're so uncertain about, you know, the future and, you know, what's going to happen when live music venues open back up. Are they going to open back up? Like a lot of them are closing. A lot of the music venues that have been around for a long time that are fan favorites are closing. Like, how are we going to evolve with this? How are we going to overcome this and become one with, you know, how the world is moving?
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a couple of things, and I had a chance to think about this a little, because I do talk to so many musicians that this has actually been a great opportunity for us to talk, because they had a tour planned and now they're not touring, or they had things going on and now they're not doing that. And so it's made, certainly doing interviews, it's made my job a lot easier in some instances. But I think, to begin with, music has been around well before professional musicians and things ever came about. It is an integral part of humanity, and it has a very spiritual component for us. And I think that sometimes people will look at it and think of it as like, oh, it's just entertainment, or it's just, you know, fluff. There's so much more to music, and there's so much more to bass, which I'm sure it's something that you feel too when you play.
Yeah, sure.
It's like a connection between your chest and heaven. I mean, you're just boom. It's like a beam of light. It's the light of the Luxor pyramid shooting up into the skies. And so the music that is in us will survive.
Yeah.
And no matter what happens, because there didn't used to be venues and there was music, and people started getting together, deciding, okay, we'll sit maybe around a light post, or we'll sit around a fire, and we'll do this stuff. I think what's going to have to happen is we're going to have to look, and the people that will survive will be those that adapt.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're just going to have to go, okay, this is going to be different. If you insist that things be exactly the way they used to be, that is not necessarily an option. You're going to have to go, okay, we're going to have to go this way. And Victor, again, my guru, brilliant. He had a statement when we interviewed him, another one of his shows that were in Portland. He made the statement that people back in the day watched TV for free and they would pay for music. You know, you would buy that record, you'd buy that 45, you'd buy an 8-track, you'd buy the cassettes. I mean, you know, you saved your money to put it in there, and musicians got paid. Now, people will pay for TV. You'll pay for Netflix, you'll pay for HBO, you'll pay for Disney Plus. I mean, you want to see The Mandalorian, I mean, you're going to pay for it.
You pay for every app you don't need. You pay for Amazon Prime.
But people want their music for free.
Yeah.
So they'll stream stuff. They're expecting to have it just kind of given to them. Sure. And you're seeing people that will post especially on social media, they'll put a picture of a royalty check they got from Spotify that was 14 cents. And you're kind of going, seriously? You know, that's all that was. So they're going to have to remachine things and decide, how am I going to do this? How does my act work with that? Now, there's a group that I had the opportunity to interview up here in Portland, Walk Off the Earth.
Okay.
And if you haven't seen them, I recommend you do, because they hit Facebook, they hit YouTube hard and heavy before a lot of people were doing it. And so most of their videos have over 10 million views.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of it is cover music. Each one of them in the band can play bass. And a lot of times they alternate in different songs. A different member of the band is playing the bass. They've been huge proponents of U-bass. And one of the reasons is they throw their basses off stage. Their techs have to catch these instruments. And
what a fun job.
Oh, yeah. And right when we talked to him, one of their techs had got hit. He knocked out a tooth because you know, off stage is kind of dark too. So you got a U-bass, solid body U-bass coming at you in the dark, and, you know, he'd had a tooth knocked out. So they worked the thing backwards. They built the YouTube presence, and then they were touring, you know? So it's kind of like all these people that already knew of them. And I'm kind of surprised. Many times I'll talk to musicians. I talked to my son about it. And I said, hey, have you caught the latest, you know, this Walk Off the Earth piece? He's like, who? You know, who are you talking about? You know, again, they've got a following, but what they've done is they've built kind of their essence that didn't depend on live performance.
They started on YouTube. They did a Justin Bieber. They Bieberized us.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe people need to start rethinking that and rethinking the formats and how they're, you know, putting their music out there. But that was a question that I wanted to ask you, because I know you are very involved in the music industry, and you know, you're seeing this as well, you know, as with everybody else, and it's just it's crazy, you know, how everything's changing so quickly. So what I wanted to also ask you, so how do you pick the musicians? Okay, we kind of talked about that. So you have a support team of contributors, and you know, you reach out to them. And how does it feel being a catalyst in the industry for the bass guitar, which a lot of people wouldn't necessarily, you know, focus on per se?
Sure. Well, I think it starts from the recognition of the job that bass does, coloring music as we understand it. When you start breaking down, I'll go back to the Beatles. You start listening to McCartney and his bass lines. That's what you remember of a lot of their tunes. You know, Come Together, the opening is that bass.
Yeah.
You know, and you just kind of going, whoa, you know.
And those bass lines are not easy.
Oh no. And they're very lyrical, but they color the feeling that is underlying under the lyrics and under the music and all that. They affect the change. They make it do what it does. And so when you start out with a passion for the instrument and an understanding of the power of the instrument, and so many times when you see groups that will send, you know, video for review or something, and they don't have a bass player.
Yeah.
It's empty. It's missing. And you're just kind of going, you know, and granted, there is some room for synth bass. And I understand a lot of string players will double up and have skills with synth bass, because there are some licks that are just crazy.
Yeah, and you get that like real boot, like that.
Oh, yeah. So
sound with that synth bass. Yeah.
So a great example, Nate Watt with Stevie Wonder. He does some of the songs are synth bass, and it was one of the things, because as I was trying to lift tunes, because I love lifting tunes, you start going on a fretboard. How can I make this? How can I get my fingers to hit these notes? This just doesn't seem to work. But with keys, you go, oh. This will work this way, and you know, it's got its place. So kind of coming back to, I picked this niche particularly because I love the instrument and I love the music, and I love how it affects how we feel, how the music feels, and it has been a very welcoming segment. Like I said, all of these very kind, wonderful players, cool cats.
Yeah.
It's been something that ever since we started, there's just been, you know, it's been very rewarding, and I think that's a big part of it. We hope we try to have, we've got a philosophy of being fair, of keeping a not mean kind of environment, and unfortunately on social media and in some base areas, there can be a lot of meanness.
There really is. There's some haters out there.
Oh, it can be terrible. And when we started out, we're like, we're not going to be that way. Yeah. You know, if I can't say something good about a player or an instrument or a piece of gear, you know, and there's been instances like one of our reviewers will get an instrument that's got an issue. Instead of writing a terrible review going, oh, this is crap, it didn't work, you know, contact the people and said, hey, I plugged it in and it wasn't doing this, or,
Sure.
you know, and it could be a wire came loose. It could be, you know, it got torqued in transit,
Yeah.
you know, who knows? But we're not going to just, we don't dump on anybody. And, you know, we hope that we can share the better parts of it. And in many cases, you know, give information to the bass community that can help them when they're thinking, how do I do this, or what should I do for that, you know? And you know, we have so many choices. You're a huge Rickenbacker fan. You know, I had the chat. I interviewed the author of the Rickenbacker book.
Ooh.
And you know, people that are Rickenbacker fans, I'm doing something that making A, aware that there is a book, and B, getting some insight into what he was thinking, because he plays pretty much exclusively Rickenbackers too. You know, so I mean, you know, it's just it's a reward in itself.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. Speaking of books, do you have any suggestions for people at home? I mean, you know, from novice to, you know, superstar bass players, any books that you could suggest for education?
Well, you know, again, I think people need to look at how they learn. And bass education, as you know, is an area where there is some controversy. I'm trying to say this diplomatically, because also one of my favorite people that I've interviewed has been Jeff Berlin.
Okay.
And if you look in his I believe his if it's still there, his Wikipedia page, there's actually a quote of mine, which is, when you hear the name Jeff Berlin, there's like a tremble in the force. Because some people will get very upset. And Jeff has had some very strong positions about bass education that not everybody shares. And he's kind of gone head to head with some people that are really nice. And it's polarized the community. They're going, oh, well, you're being mean to him. I don't like you. And I understand where he's coming from. But, you know, like, I personally would be terribly delinquent along his standards, because I don't read as well as I would like. I'm not steeped in theory.
I got you.
But then again, I'm not a professional musician. I'm an editor of a magazine that's dedicated to bass. Yeah. So if I can't sight read Hamilton, then, you know, it's not going to make a difference. But coming back, I think there's a lot of very creative individuals that have come up with ways that they understood it that has been helpful. People that come to mind, Alex Lofoco has one that's kind of color coding the fretboard. It's how he sees it, and some people have found it very helpful. Ariane Kapp has a method of hers, which is also very interesting and very helpful. There's a lot more interaction available, and Skype or Zoom with individuals that may help your visual learners more than people just sitting with a book. And I think that is kind of one of the challenges that can be very daunting. It can be kind of hard. And it goes back to why I cheated with accordion. If I can hear it, I want to play it. You know, so like one of the early songs I loved learning was Hotel California by the Eagles. If I had a choice to play Mary Had a Little Lamb or Hotel California, even if I can read Mary Had a Little Lamb, I'm going to play Hotel California because I can hear it and I can go ahead. It's rewarding. It's satisfying to me.
Absolutely.
So I tend to not do that work. And so that said, there are a lot of people that have video availability of video programs. I know Artist Works, you know, you can learn from Patitucci or Nathan East. Adam Nitty has educational stuff that he does. Victor Wooten, Gerald Veasley with their camp experiences, amazing stuff. There's so many possibilities where you can learn. And again, for individual, Bass Musician Magazine actually has a list of some individuals that have availability. And, you know, people like Killian Duarte, you know, feel free to look up. I know Killian comes to mind because he's so prog rock. I mean, he's a Berkeley grad.
Yeah.
But he's a prog beast. And if I were going to play prog rock, I'd go, okay, I want to learn from Killian because that's kind of
the man.
He's the guy I want to learn from, you know? So a lot of it goes beyond books. And as you mentioned, also YouTube videos, the good and the bad is that a lot of times it'll help you get over a hump. I'll say, I think when you're lifting tunes, you'll have that one part, you just kind of don't get it. And you kind of go, oh, and if you could just see somebody else do it, you'd go, oh,
sure. Yeah.
That run. So instead of me trying to do this run down, you know, at my 3rd, 4th frets, if I come up this octave and now if I'm on 12th fret, oh, look, it's so much easier and I can reach so well. I've been really enjoying Lee Sklar has been putting up videos and he is so fluid and such a natural.
He's such a rock star.
Oh, but you listen to these tunes like he did one, You've Got a Friend, Carole King tune. And he doesn't look at the fretboard. I mean, his hand does it. He throws in these lovely lyrical licks that you kind of go, oh yeah, I remember that, you know, and it transports us. Again, this is why music will live. I was in San Francisco in the 70s. I bought a 45 of You've Got a Friend by James Taylor, and it was my jam, you know.
Was that the jammy jam?
For as long as there could be, you know, until I moved on, you know, I had to cycle through it. I had to cycle through it. And then I was ready to move on to the next tune.
Yeah.
But there are bits of it that are hard to pick up. And Lee does so fabulously, you know, that you gotta go, oh my gosh, you know, that's incredible. Phil Collins is another, he's played with Phil Collins as well. And they were on tour when the whole pandemic and stuff happened.
Wow.
And, you know, just recently there was a video of these 2 young teenagers that heard Phil Collins tunes for the first time ever. And they were blown away. And I was kind of like, of course.
Kids these days.
I know. It was always an amazing tune. You know, it's always such a great thing. So, you know, there's so many ways to learn. If you're fortunate and you're in a place where there are teachers, like if you live in New York City, you could learn from a lot of these musicians. When I was in Puerto Rico, my little town, it had a music store. And I remember since I already played guitar, I went in thinking I could take classes. I met with the teacher. He said, play something. I played. He says, oh, you already have too many bad habits. I can't teach you anything.
Oh no.
And he threw me out. And so I pretty much said, well, you know, I'm not going to take classes because obviously I guess I'm too damaged. So I'll just play my way and have fun doing it, you know? Around the same time I was living there though, Oscar Cartaya, who we interviewed in the past at one point, he played with Spyro Gyra. He's also played with a lot of the Latin jazz, salsa people, big names, Fania, all these guys.
Nice.
He was on the island and he would get on a little bus. They call them guaguitas. He'd get on this little bus in the morning and go to an arts high school that was in San Juan, in the capital. And then he would take private lessons and then he'd have to come back. And so, you know, he's doing like 16-hour days, coming and going and doing all this. And he went to the Conservatory of Music there in Puerto Rico. And he was playing at a lot of the venues, and he had a mentor that said, you're doing as good as you're going to do here on the island. If you want to do better, you need to go forth. And so he went to Musicians Institute, and they're pretty much, you know, Zoom passed through it, but he made a lot of connections. And so that's a whole other part too. If you have the talent and you have the desire and you want to do a formal program, whether it's Berkeley or MI or, you know, a lot of the colleges and things, who knows what that's going to be like in the future.
Yeah.
But there's a wealth of possibilities.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing but possibilities. You know, there's so many things that I think so many positive things that we can take out of this and just try to make it, you know, the best that we can and involve the best that we can in the situation that we're in. I want to know, what is your motivation 13 years later, still going out there, still doing your thing, still interviewing, you know, musicians and inspiring so many people?
Well, again, one of the reasons when we started this was because I didn't feel there was a good way for us to know the musicians, the bass players. And when you started out, you know, McCartney, you know, Sting, you know, Flea, you know, you throw out some names like that, you know, these are people that everybody knows and they go, okay, yeah. But even Jaco and things like that, you know, may he rest in peace. I wish I would have had a chance to interview him.
Oh yeah.
That would have been fabulous. But I have interviewed people that actually studied with Jaco. And so there's going to be on one of our upcoming covers, I can't give away the name yet, but I had a chance to chat with somebody who studied with Jaco.
Oh, I'm so excited.
And so I think part of it was I felt there was a need for this instrument. And secondarily, this kind of format, because paper is great, but we've kind of, Bass Musician Magazine has never been a paper magazine. I always felt we needed to be entirely digital so we could do this kind of thing where people could see us, people can hear us. If there's music to be heard, they can hear it. It's not just read about it, because I mean, this is a very sensorial experience, and being able to hear is an incredibly important thing. So if I do like an instrument review and I can give you a sound sample, you might go, oh yeah, I like the way that sounds. But if I just write about it and tell you, oh yeah, it felt great, and it had this reach and so many frets and it was made out of this wood, you'll kind of go, well, that's nice, but I don't know any more now than I did. You know, you could read it the same way I can read it. Yeah. There's that. So being able to provide this service and connect the bass community, again, we've made a point of having a strong presence in social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, we're still Twitter. We still have a MySpace account. Although
no, you do not.
We do.
Does it work?
Yeah. I basically just let people know when a new issue goes up every month. So there's a cover, and you know,
how funny. I had no idea that was still a thing.
Yeah, well, it's changed so much, but we did back in the day, pre-Facebook, we had connected with a lot of the musicians, and especially Cirque du Soleil bass players, our friend Derek in Vegas.
Oh, how fun.
All around the world. And you know, it's been very enriching to see all of the possibilities that bass players could be involved with, whether it was with a Cirque show, whether it was a Broadway show, whether it was a band on stage, whether it's a solo performance kind of thing. I mean, you know, I feel privileged to be, and that I think that's the motivation is it has been so rewarding that in itself doing it is like the privilege and the reward. You know, it's like the treat every time you get to do some of these things or hear them. And I know it's going to change because of the whole live performance, because that was a thing when I've been to hear bands that I only wanted to hear as a kid, and you know, didn't have money.
Yeah.
And you know, been backstage with them. I've chatted with them. You know, and they're cool dudes, and so. It's just been in itself, doing this has been a reward. And again, we hope that we're giving back to the community, making it, sharing it, because we could just go and do it and then not tell anybody about it, but we're trying to capture it and bring it to people as well.
Yeah, no, I love it. And you guys have weekly updates that I get in my emails. You have your top 10 bases on Instagram. You have your Just Ask Momo section. You have your reviews. You have your bass history. You share articles. You have artists. I mean, anything anybody needs to know, go to bassmusicianmagazine.com. You'll find it there. Thanks to Raul and Valerie Amador. I'm going to start to wrap this up because I know we've already been on about an hour and I have so many other things that I wanted to talk to you about.
Pick your most important one.
Okay, who are the top 5 underrated bassists? If you could give us.
You know, again, I think we when we talk about underrated, I think a lot of people don't realize that they're there because of their often the size. And at least Sklar is a great example of that. Okay. His voice is heard in so much of the James Taylor, Phil Collins kind of stuff, but so many people don't know, they didn't know what he looked like. And he's pretty remarkable. When you see him, you got to go, oh, that's Lee.
I know. When I saw the interview between you two, I was like, oh my gosh, of course this is Lee.
Yeah. Beard and beard, you know.
Yeah.
But people like Nathan East that has done so many, he's got so much studio work with, oh my gosh, I mean, their discographies, when you start getting into them, like Chuck Rainey is the most recorded bassist like in history.
Really?
And he's such a quiet dude, and you know, and he's done a lot of Texas music and stuff. And so when you hear some of his things, but he's very soft spoken, he's very chill, he's
very humble,
but he's got more record credits than anyone on the planet.
Wow.
And you wouldn't know it, you know. There's just a ton of unspoken heroes. And again, this is part of what keeps us going, is that I get to, every time I talk to another musician, I'm learning their history and I'm finding out about them as our readers are as well. And
yeah.
In some ways there's stuff that just surprises me. I'm kind of like, what? This, and you knew this, and you know, there's a ton of them, but those are the few that come to the top of my head.
And thank you so much, because I think that you know, are a catalyst, obviously, for bringing such, you know, underrated musicians to the limelight so that people can discover them, since bass players are kind of sometimes pushed towards the back. Okay, we're gonna do a little quiz, and then we're gonna rock and roll out of here. We're gonna talk bass guitar, because you are the bass guitar god. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
All right. What band / musician first used the fretless bass? Was it Jaco Pastorius, Bill Wyman, Jack Bruce, or Andy Fraser?
You know, that's in our bass history that's up right now. So for anybody that wants to know the right answer. And Tim Fletcher would be my lifeline if I had to call out and say, Tim, help me. And this kind of goes back to the beauty of having contributors. I don't have to know everything, because I just know who to ask. And so I would ask Tim. So I don't know the answer to.
So if you had to guess, Jaco, Bill, Jack, or Andy?
I'd probably say Jack, but.
Okay, let's see. We are incorrect.
Oh.
Bill Wyman used a fretless on recordings long before Jaco, having used it for numerous Rolling Stones tunes. Okay, well, now we all learn together, okay? For what record label did James Jamerson play? Motown,
Motown.
Death Row, or Stax? Death Row.
I'll go with Motown on that.
Motown is correct. Oh my goodness.
Yay, I finally knew something.
Oh, you know it all. Which of the following bassists can play the fastest?
Oh, no.
Is it Victor Wooten from Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, because I'm so sure we needed to know that. Chris Wolstenholme from Muse, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, or Billy Sheehan from Talas?
Of those, I would probably go with Billy Sheehan, but what I guess I go into a comment that for speed you can get a machine to do it, and there are some individuals that are kind of like machines.
Oh yeah.
I know that there are, like, I know Jayan Varma in India had clocked. He claims to be the fastest bassist on the planet. Now, again, I don't know whether they're counting beats per minute, they're recording them, they're timing them, they're doing whatever. To me, it's not as much about speed when it comes to bass. As a matter of fact, a lot of times it's the space in between the notes that is more important. So you could have a single sustained note, and that has more effect than 800. But I'll guess Billy, because I've seen him play some stuff that is just mind-boggling.
Who in the heck is Tallis? I don't think I've heard of that before. Is that the band that he plays with? I don't know.
Oh, he's Winery Dogs and
Winery Dogs. My friend Bruno was just singing Winery Dogs, and you got that correct, Raul. That was the correct answer.
Now, here's a little known fact. I don't know whether you know that Billy modified his bass.
Okay.
With a Rickenbacker pickup.
Really?
At the neck. And so he did this Franken bass kind of thing where the bridge pickup was one thing. It had a Rickenbacker pickup next to the neck, and it had two whole separate electronic systems. So it had stereo output instrument plugs. So it needed 2 instrument cables, 2 amps.
Wow.
And so people that go to Yamaha and buy a Billy Sheehan signature bass, Yamaha makes them nice. Billy's was routed out, and
hey, Billy's was the true OG.
It was the original one, but he's been a pioneer on working sound as well, to see, how can I make this do what I want it to do? How can I modify my instrument? And then, he's obviously been willing to share, because Yamaha can set you up with a Billy Sheehan signature bass.
Wow, that's very interesting. And you don't need 2 outputs and 2 guitar.
Actually, you do. That has 2 outputs.
Oh wow, that's great. That's like my Rickenbacker, or my Rickenbackers, they have the 2 outputs, but haven't figured all that out. Which company made the first production fretless? Fender, Ampeg, Dan Electro, Alembic?
Alembic. I think kind of the key word there would be production, because the moment I hear production, I start thinking Fender. But I know that Dan Electro and Alembic have done some unique things. Some of them may be more collector's items, and I've never seen them. But
sure.
So I'll go with Fender just because of their history.
Okay.
And then Ampeg did a bunch of basses too.
It was Ampeg.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Ampeg made basses?
Yes.
How come I didn't know this?
Yes. And Ampeg even did some of the electric baby bass kind of instruments in salsa. Yeah.
I want an Ampeg bass. Oh my gosh. I'm going to get on eBay as soon as we get off of this conversation.
There are people that have them, hold on to them.
I'm sure they do, because I've never even heard of it before. Yeah. Like, what? Okay, so question 5 of 9. We got a few left. Which of the following basses has Jack Bruce not used professionally?
Oh my gosh.
We have a Fender. What is VI? Is that a 6 or a 4? What is VI in Roman numeral?
6.
6, okay. Fender VI, Gibson EB, a Warwick Thumb, or the Dan Electro Longhorn?
I'll say, again, I've seen, and it's really weird where you see stuff, because I know that he has played Warwick.
Okay.
It seems like everybody who's ever played bass has at least played Fender at some point, so probably that would be safe. I'm going to go with he has not played a Dan Electro thumb, but I could be wrong.
Okay, let's see. We were incorrect. Which of the following? Gibson, the Gibson EB-0.
Interesting. Well, and this goes back to in the ongoing quest for knowledge, and this is one thing where it was an advantage and a disadvantage. By living outside of the country for 18 years,
yeah,
there was a lot of things that were happening that I missed.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat when I find out about them, because I'm kind of going, wow, I never knew that. And a classic example of that was when I interviewed Brown Mark, who played with Prince during the Purple Rain tour years and stuff like that.
Ah, that's so exciting. Oh my gosh.
And upcoming, we will have Brown Mark just released a book about his years playing with Prince. And the criticism I got from the interview, because there's always somebody that can find what you didn't do. They were like, you didn't talk enough about his years with Prince. And I'm kind of like, he didn't choose to talk about him too much. Yeah, we talked.
It's like, look up his interviews. I'm sure there's plenty about him talking about Prince.
And the thing was, they were still kind of in the mourning stage. Him and the Revolution. Prince had passed away. I mean, there'd been some back, so it was still kind of a very sensitive topic, and the timing wasn't right. Now, 3 years goes by. He releases a book about it. We got back together, and it will be forthcoming. Bass Musician Magazine, people can look forward to having me talk with Brown Mark again. And when the book comes out, if you wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes in the whole Prince existence and what Brown Mark's life was like, that's the place to go. He is the source. And I learned a lot of things I didn't know. And I wish, again, I could tell you I know everything about everything. No, not even close. But I learn as I go. Yeah. And it's just, it's easy to absorb. And again, I could turn to people and go, there are people that thrive at knowing these details. There's just such a wealth of stuff that, it's like, hey, I do as well.
Oh, sorry. Hold on just a second. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. So yeah, I did miserably, I'm sure.
No. We still. Oh wait, I did click out. That was actually the hardest question of the quiz. We have 3 more.
Okay.
A thumb is used to hit the string, producing a percussive thump-like note. Coupled with that is a pulling action that makes a tight, twangy ring. This technique was invented by who? Stanley Clarke, Larry Graham, John Entwistle, or Flea?
I would go Larry Graham.
You are very correct. Larry Graham was the first artist to record slap bass.
Yep, slap and popping.
Slap of the bass, slap of the bass. Who played bass for Elvis?
Oh.
Scotty Moore, Jerry Germont, Duck Dunn, or Bill Black?
Yeah, that is so before my time.
Channel your father. Did he listen to Elvis at all?
My dad listened to Trio Los Panchos. So, so that it's kind of like, we're not.
Trios de Pancho?
Trio Los Panchos.
Trios Los Panchos.
Yes. In the Mexican music scene, trios were huge. And Los Panchos back in the day was probably one of the biggest ones. And I don't know if they're all named Pancho, and that's why they're the Trio Los Panchos. But that was the one that was playing in the background when I was playing other kind of music, that he would say, why don't you play this? This is good. This is good music.
Yeah.
So no, Elvis. Good gosh. So many of those players you mentioned go far enough back that they could have played with Elvis, but I'm gonna say I absolutely have no clue.
Okay, so I'll guess because I don't know any of these artists. I'm gonna go with Duck Dunn just because I like his name. And I am so wrong.
Yeah.
Bill Black. Bill
Good luck.
Black was the bass
There
player
you go.
for Elvis.
So Duck done the kind of the thing that jumps out. He's another one, understated, played on a ton of stuff, but got visibility in the Blues Brothers movie. He's the bass player for the band, and kind of characteristically, he smoked a pipe.
Got you.
When people could smoke and play at the same time.
Yeah. When it was the thing to do.
Yeah, the room full of smoke.
Okay, so what is this? Question 8 of 9. What bass did the song My Generation by The Who contains, and who was the bass player? Was it Jack Bruce with the Gibson? Was it John Entwistle with the Dan Electro? Was it Paul Chambers with the Dan Electro? Or was it John Entwistle with a Fender Jazz? The song My Generation by The Who.
Well, I was going with Entwistle, but then he had 2 different basses. So let's try the Dan Electro just out of
he did there. It's a trick question. Okay, so okay, let's see. Mind you, I picked a difficulty hard. It was the Fender Jazz.
Oh, of course.
We were so close. Let's see, one more question and then we'll be done. This bassist has a unique style based on alternate tunings and accurate technique, all played on his custom Zon Hyper bass.
Michael Mannering.
Oh, I didn't even have to give you you are correct. This bassist has a unique style based on alternate tunings and accurate technique. What is a Zon Hyper bass?
Oh, honey.
Am I gonna have to YouTube that?
If you and again, preview for people, we've got a Michael Mannering piece coming months. The hyperbass is an amazing instrument. Michael Mannering changes tuning mid-song.
Oh.
So if you think it's hard keeping track of like, oh, this is B-E-A-D-G, in the middle of the song, he's dropped half a note here and he's got a bridge drop, and so he can change things, and you're just like,
wow.
Yeah, where's it going? And it is one of these that has just this absurd, it's cut so that he's got like a total reach on this fretboard. I don't know, he's got how many octaves. It's something that he and Joe Zahn worked on, kind of a concept when he went to Joe about it and said, this is kind of what I'm looking for.
Wow.
Michael also is very pioneer on sounds, and so he uses an EBow. Have you ever seen an EBow?
Is it like it doesn't have like a string, it's just the...
No, it's an electrical thing that you hold between your fingers like some rings, and when you put it over your bass strings, it makes your bass strings resonate like you're playing with a bow.
What?
Yes. And so you could have your Rick, and with an EBow, when you're doing the fingering, it sounds like you're playing with a bow.
How much are those?
Yeah. And a lot of guitarists, there's more guitarists that use them. Not a lot of bass players do, but Michael does. And so I'll encourage you, go to YouTube, look up some of Michael's stuff.
Yeah.
It's out of this world. I mean, he is another one of these players that he has tunes that sound like whale song to me. I'm just kind of going, it's like you're talking to a whole other species here, man. It is so, it's amazingly beautiful. But again, this is kind of the thing that I would never, I won't even try to lift one of Michael's songs. I mean, it's just like, why should I even try? I mean, I'm not
That's so crazy. That's what I love so much, though, about, just everybody being, their own style and their own personality, is that we bring so much to the table, and everybody has different techniques and different ways of thinking of things, and we can all kind of just like come together and, figure stuff out. And there's like these pioneers that are doing these amazing things and still thinking outside the box. And that's so cool. So,
well, and it is one of It is one of the reasons that it's important also, I think, in the community. It's one of the things we've tried to also share when people are doing something dramatically different. There is a big component of the community that is very stubbornly holding on to whatever concept. And so, I mean, basically even go over more than 4 strings, that gets people worked up.
Pick or no pick.
I know, pick or no pick. I mean, is this going to be the battlefield we're going to all line up our troops on? And then you have individuals that are doing stuff with, trying new things, trying a fretless, fretted, 10 strings, all of these just kind of things. And it's not for everybody, and that's fine. It's like, find how you express yourself. Find what gives you your voice. Even again, I can't help but looking at your basses. But I remember I talked to another reggae player that told me he never changes his strings. They're so dead. They've got this thud that he just loves.
Okay.
And he's worried that he's going to lose his mojo if he changes his strings.
Oh, bless his heart.
And how many other people you go like, oh, I have to change my strings, and I have to boil my strings, or I have to have new strings every performance.
I never heard about boiling my string, boiling the string.
Yep. If you look back, it's a couple months ago, we did a big piece with Mike Pope, and he boils his strings to get extra life out of them, because he says he sweats a lot when he plays, and he needs to clean them to get more life out of them, and it works.
Wow, that's an interesting technique.
There's a lot. So again, there's kind of like I'm saying, there's so many things to possibly know. I know a lot of them. There's a lot I know I don't know, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But you learn a little something every day. What can I say?
We're constantly learning, and I think that's the importance, is that we just have to continue like educating ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
thank you for Bass Musician Magazine, because that allows us the opportunity to continue education, history, theory, everything. You guys provide all that in one outlet. And so thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for your time today. I'm glad that we were able to figure out the Zoom live. Basically, for anybody that wants or is interested in doing something like this, you just have to pay a small subscription fee, like most things, and then you can actually stream live. But what I do love so much about the Zoom is that it does record the whole camera and audio, and it also separates it, so then I can go ahead and turn this into a podcast later on, which is great because it gives you multiple outlets for content.
Gotcha.
So I just wanted to let everybody at home know, because I know I've been trying to do this for quite a while. So thank you, Raul, so much. Unfortunately, I haven't really been able to keep up with any of the comments, so people have been commenting. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate you guys. We appreciate you, Raul, your time. Thank Valerie. And thank you guys so much for everything that you do.
Well, Sunshine, thank you so much for the opportunity to chat. And so many times I make a point when I interview people that I don't stick my story into their interview as much. And so this is probably the only time that anybody will hear the whole shebang. It's come here, Sunshine Cantu, getting the real story behind the scenes. Nobody else knows it. They all have just little bits and pieces. So thank you. So much for making this possible, and I invite all of your listeners and watchers to continue to enjoy Bass Musician Magazine. It is a free online publication. I stress the word free. We did that on purpose because we want to make this available to everybody around the planet. No matter where you go, we're there for you. It's free of charge, and we intend to keep it that way. So keep it low. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Raul. You guys have a very blessed and beautiful day, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you and talking to you soon.
Cool.
Peace out, brother.